And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed. To you it shall be for food. Genesis 1:29. Man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat to the full. Psalm 78:25. Everyday Manna with Lisa.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Everyday Manna. On today's program, we are going to be making a lemon honey soy sauce based chicken with fanned potatoes with lots of cheese and herbs on top, and then we're going to be making steamed asparagus with an almond butter on top of it, and it's so delicious. We're going to get started today on our potatoes because they're going to take the longest. We've got our oven preheating to 425 degrees, and I want to show you a little trick. Now, I've already done a few of them, but I want to show you this little trick. If you will get 2 wooden spoons and just lay them side by side, put your potato in the middle for this recipe. This is how you do it. We're going to be making fanned potatoes, and they're going to fan out, and then we're going to, as they bake, and then we're going to put cheese and so forth on top. But to get them to do that, you don't want to cut all the way through the potato, but if you will lay little wooden spoons, and then you will take your knife, and you will just cut. And sometimes the end will come off because it's just shorter, and that's okay. And just throw that away, and then just cut. As you can see, the knife stops. Well, that one's not going to work either here. The knife will stop with where the spoons are. See how I'm doing that? And the wooden spoon stops my knife. And then you just go through the potato. And as it bakes, the moisture in the potato will cause it to kind of fan out, and it just looks pretty. It's just a pretty little decorative way to do potatoes. And then because I'm a lefty, you know, everything's backwards for me. I have to turn it and go this way. So get my spoons together, lay my potato on top. Be careful, you don't want to cut your fingers, and just fan out the little potato. You can hold your slices till you get done. Sometimes when you get to the end, it does come off, but that's okay. It doesn't really matter. And there you go. And you've got this little accordion-like potato. And you can see there, it just creates these little fine pieces. And the bottom of the potato is still all together. And then we're going to put that in our baking dish. And I've already got some done because I'm going to do quite a few today. And then what you want to do is you want to mix about a teaspoon, or so of, I'm using dried rosemary today. You could use any kind of herb that you like. It truly doesn't matter. I just happen to have rosemary, and we're going to be using it in our chicken dish, so I thought, well, that would marry the flavors together. If you want to use fresh herbs, you can do that. Just don't add them at this point. You want to add them a little later, but because I'm using dried, I'm going to add them now. I've got about 1/4 of a teaspoon or so of paprika, and truly that is really just for color. It just simply looks prettier. In my pot, I have about 4 tablespoons or so of melted butter, and I'm just going to put the herbs in there, and I'm just going to stir them in to our melted butter. Let's move our potatoes up here, and we're going to salt them with just a little bit of kosher salt. We're going to add a little bit of freshly ground black pepper. And because I've got so many of them, I am going to go ahead and put just a little touch of olive oil. Let me grab my olive oil. Just a little bit, probably less than a teaspoon per potato, just to keep the skin moist as it's baking. So drizzle them with just a little bit of olive oil. And then take your butter mixture and then just spoon gently over each potato. Just put a spoonful of each, trying to get it down in the little slits that you've cut in your potatoes. And as these bake, like I said, they will kind of fan out. And then in just a little bit, in about 40 minutes, what you're going to do is you're going to take some cheese. Today we're going to use cheddar cheese and Parmesan cheese. We're going to mix those together. And then we're going to put that over and down in the little slits that are going to just pop right out. And then we're going to add some fresh chopped parsley at the end, and they will be absolutely delicious. That cheese just kind of melts down over them, and it gets down in there, and it browns just a touch, and it's so very, very good. So we're going to pop these in the oven. So let's go ahead and get these in the oven. And then we're going to start on our chicken. Now, I love chicken, and chicken is just one of those ingredients that you can do just so many different ways. And this is a recipe that I've been doing for years. And I've just got in here just some boneless, skinless chicken breasts that are a little bit, I cut them in half so that they would be a little bit smaller. And I've got 4 chicken breasts, but I've cut them in half so it's a little bit more. So that's all that is. We're going to sprinkle very lightly with salt because we are going to be using soy sauce. And as you know, soy sauce has a lot of sodium in it. I'm going to put some fresh cracked pepper on there today. I love fresh ground pepper, and I like mine a little bit on the coarse side. You, of course, can do yours fine if you like it that way. But I like to bite into that little bit of the pepper. We're going to take a lemon. If you'll take your lemon and you'll roll it on your cutting board with your hand before you do anything to it, it really does help release those juices. I'm going to zest 1 lemon because I'm going to add that to the chicken dish, and then I'm going to, of course, juice the lemon. But the zest truly, really does, and if you've never tried this, please do. It really adds so much flavor. The essential oils of the lemon are in the skin. You see the white part right here? You don't want to go down into that part. That's just a little bit bitter. But any citrus, you can do this to any citrus, and it just adds so much more flavor to the dish that you're using the juice in. And I love lemon, and I use it a lot in a lot of different things. It just pops the flavor. It just adds a brightness to it that you just simply can't get with anything else. So there you go. That's just about all of the zest off of that lemon. Remember to always tap your little microplane so you get it off the bottom of it. And then we're going to cut the lemon in half. And all I'm going to do is squeeze this lemon with my little lemon reamer. And I had an email the other day. A viewer asked me, said, you got to tell us where you get your gadgets. Anywhere. Any department store that sells cooking utensils, you can get these kinds of things in, anywhere. Targets, Walmart, any JCPenney's, any of the stores that have the little gadgets. I shop anywhere I go. If there's a kitchen section, that's where you're going to find me. And so we're just going to zest or squeeze the juice out of here. When I come back, we're going to dress up this dressing just a little more and get our chicken in the oven. I'll be right back with you in just a minute. And welcome back. Now we've got the juice and the zest of 1 lemon, and this was a mighty juicy lemon, so that's a good thing. And we're going to add 1/4 cup of soy sauce. Now I use reduced sodium soy sauce because I just don't like to, have a lot of salt in my diet. My brother went through kidney failure several years ago, and as a result of that, I just kind of learned to cook with less salt. And you know what? When you get used to not having as much salt in your diet, I promise you don't miss it, especially when you make up for that with fresh flavors like lemon juice and lemon zest and fresh herbs and things like that. You won't miss the salt in your foods. We're going to add about 1/4 teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes. This just adds just a little bit of heat. And you know what? If you'll put your herbs or things like that, especially the little red pepper flakes, in your hand and you just kind of take your finger and crush them, it really does help to release the volatile oils that are in there. Then we've got about 1 tablespoon or so of dried rosemary. And by all means, if you have fresh rosemary, you can use it. I use a lot of rosemary. It's one of those herbs that I grow at home. And they say you can keep it over the winter. I never have success with that, but every summer I have a big rosemary bush, and we'll do that together this summer. We're going to add the zest of our lemon just to our soy sauce and lemon juice. Then we're going to add honey, and you want to add about 1/3 cup of honey. Honey just adds the sweetness and a glaze, and it kind of caramelizes just a little bit over the chicken, and it is so very good. I'm going to turn my stove on. I've got a pan here with about an inch or so of water, and we're going to be getting our asparagus ready, and we're going to mix this together first. Just use a whisk and kind of incorporate that honey into the mixture there. And we're going to just stir that together, and then you just pour this over your chicken, making sure that it gets all over. This is one of those times when you want to make sure that the baking dish that you are using, that the chicken, the amount of chicken that you cook, and you could double this recipe, you could half this recipe for that matter if it's just the two of you, and you make sure that it fits snugly in there. And the reason is you want your chicken completely submerged, you know, or not submerged, I guess, but surrounded by that wonderful sauce that you've just made. And if your pan is too big, what'll happen is your sauce will just fan out and it'll burn. So, but if you have it snug in there, you know, there's less likely the chance of all of that the honey especially is what will burn on you. And then you want to just put this in your oven at about 350 degrees or so, and we're just going to let this bake. It'll take, mine are boneless, skinless, so it doesn't take that long. It will just take around 30 minutes or so. So let's put this in the oven, and we're just going to let that go. And while that's cooking, we are going to start our asparagus. Now, it is in season right now. It's coming into season. But, you know, I find even in the wintertime, you can get good, fresh asparagus, and it's just yummy. I don't like the really, really thin asparagus spears. You know, you can get the pencil thin ones. I personally don't like those, but you could use those if that's what you like. And it's beautiful, and I just absolutely love it. And you just line them up. I find you can take it and you can bend it and it'll break where it's tender. But usually it's just about an inch or so of the bottoms. So I just kind of line them up and I just cut off about an inch or so at the bottom. The reason you do that is this part of the asparagus tends to be a little bit woody and tends to be just kind of fibrous and chewy, and it's really not all that good. So you just cut off the ends, and then you get down to that, just that beautiful tender. If you use the really, really fat asparagus spears, you would want to take a vegetable peeler and peel off the outside. But I just have the medium size today, and they are beautiful. My water is coming up to a simmer, and I do asparagus many different ways. And this time I'm going to cut it into about 1-inch pieces. You could leave it whole if you wanted to, but now when you get down to the tips, I kind of do leave the tips all together. I don't, you don't want to break those apart. So we're going to do about 1-inch pieces. We're going to salt our water with about a tablespoon or so of just plain salt. And we're going to just kind of take my spoon and just sort of stir that around. We're going to add our asparagus. We're going to steam our asparagus for about 2 minutes or so, 3 minutes, just until it's tender. You don't want it to be mushy. You want it to still have a little bit of crispness to it. So we're going to do that. I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, we're going to make the butter sauce for the asparagus, and we're going to have a yummy dessert. I'll be right back in just a minute. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13 says, "No temptation has overtaken you except such as is common to man, but God is faithful. He will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able." You know, a flood begins with a single drop of rain, and a habit begins with a single sin. We need to be careful and choose our habits wisely. Are you speaking what God would want you to speak? Are you going the places that God would want you to go? Remember that God does see all things, and a lifestyle of sin will begin with a single sin. We need to choose our habits carefully and know that God will help us. Hey, and welcome back. Our asparagus is done. It has steamed here in this water for just a couple of minutes. And we've got in another pan, I've got about 4 tablespoons or so of butter that is melting. To the butter, let's turn that up just a little bit till we get the butter done. To the butter, we're going to add 1/2 cup of slivered almonds. You could use cashews, you could use the whole, any kind of a nut. You could use walnuts. I probably would not use pecans because they are just a little bit on the sweeter side. But we're adding just almonds to our butter. And what's going to happen is the butter, we're going to let that simmer for just a minute. The butter will end up kind of toasting the almonds just a little bit. So we're going to take a sieve and just pull out. Look at how beautiful and green. When you don't overcook your vegetables, you keep that vibrant color. And we're just going to take the asparagus and we're going to put it into the butter and the almonds. And there really truly is no substitute for fresh asparagus. The canned stuff just would not be good in this recipe. The frozen probably would not work. I've never tried it, but it tends to get kind of soft when you thaw it out. So really you need the fresh asparagus. And in the springtime when it comes into season, it's just so good and so tender. So I do want to encourage you to try asparagus if you've never tried it. Everybody that's tasted it that has never had it before, once they try it, they love it. I talked to a friend of mine last night and she said, I tried your recipe for the roasted asparagus, and she said, I just love it. Now, doesn't that look yummy? And that, my friends, is basically done. We're just going to kind of let that set until we're ready to eat. Now we're going to move on to what's called beggar purses. And these are just little sheets of puff pastry that you can get in any grocery store. It's in the freezer department. You need to thaw it overnight. Lightly flour your working surface here, and then take one of your sheets of your puff pastry and unfold it. And it just takes just a little bit. Be careful with it. You don't want to break it if you can avoid it. And it just unfolds. Lightly flour the top and your rolling pin. And what we're going to do is we're going to roll this out. Puff pastry you want to roll in one direction only because you don't want to compress the layers of butter that is in that. You just kind of want to roll it out and then turn your board, because if you start rolling in too many different directions, what will happen is it won't puff up when you cook it. And you want to roll it out just a little bit to kind of get those seams together. Take a knife, very simple. Cut it into 4 squares. You get 2 sheets of puff pastry per package, so you get 4 squares in each one, so you get 8 total. Here's where you can be creative. You can do anything you want. We have a variety of fillings today. I've got little chocolate chips, little semi-sweet chocolate chips, so we'll do one like that, maybe 2. You want to put just a little bit, just a little small, I'd say a teaspoon or so. Then I'm going to do some with the white chocolate chips. You can do them, any kind of chocolate that you like, you could do. And you want to kind of add, a few. Let's add a few more to this little chocolate bundle here. Make sure, because when you bite into this at the end, you want to make sure that you've got lots and lots of chocolate. I need to grab a spoon, and I'm going to use the Nutella that you buy at the baking aisle in any grocery store out there. It's a hazelnut spread, and it's so good. And we're going to just add about a tablespoon or so of that onto one. And with that, I think some of this milk chocolate on top of that would be good. You could add fresh raspberries in the middle of this. You could do strawberries in the middle of this. And we've got one here, so let's just do a mixture. We'll do some chocolate and some white chocolate together. So you just put whatever you want on the inside. Then you take the 4 corners, take one corner, 2 corners. Let's add a few more because this is a pretty big square. And you can't have too much chocolate in my opinion. 1 square, 2 squares, 3 squares, and 4 squares. Put up into a little purse and then just pull up your little corners. And I call these little beggar purses because they look just like a little purse. And then you just kind of twist the top until they make a little purse. Let's do one more here. 1 corner, 2 corners, 3 corners. Let's add some more chocolate. You can go to about 2 tablespoons. And then just fold your corners up. Fold in your little things, and you're sealing it is what you're doing right here. See that? And then you just take the top and kind of twist it. And you can fan out your little tippy top there so when it bakes it looks so pretty. We're just going to keep making these beggar purses and finish up our meal, and then we're going to eat. Hey, and welcome back. Now our potatoes, as you can see, have they've cooked. They have fanned out beautifully. And what we're going to do is we're going to finish these. I've got a little bit of fresh parsley that I'm going to chop, and we're going to add that. Remember, if you're using the fresh herbs, you don't want to add those until, say, the last 10 minutes or so. I'm going to drizzle them with just a little bit. Here's my olive oil with just a drizzle more olive oil. We did that in the beginning. We're just going to add a little more. Olive oil is your heart-healthy oil, so we're good to go there. We're going to sprinkle them with just a tiny bit of parsley, a piece there, just to make them look pretty, and just add a little bit of flavor to them. Then we're going to add some grated cheddar cheese, a little bit over top of each one, and just mouth-watering good. You can use whatever kind of cheese you like. I'm going to use cheddar cheese, and I'm going to use some freshly grated Parmesan cheese. But you could use Fontina, you could use Monterey Jack, you could use mozzarella, you could use whatever you like. But I like the cheddar on there, and just a little bit of freshly grated Parmesan cheese. Which I guess if I had to pick a favorite cheese for me, this would be my favorite cheese. I absolutely love it on everything, on spaghetti, on salads, on potatoes. It's got a nutty, just wonderful flavor to it. If you get the fresh Parmesan wedge and you grate it yourself, it doesn't taste anything at all like the grated stuff that you get in the cans. These need to go back into the oven for just a few minutes, just to let that cheese melt, just a couple of minutes. And while we're doing that, we're going to finish up our little beggar purses. Let me move this out of my way here. And we're going to finish up our little beggar purses that we made. Remember, these are the puff pastry filled with different kinds of chocolate. And they just look so pretty. See how they just puffed up, and they just look so good. And we've got a pretty little plate here, so we want to put one of our little beggar purses there. We're going to sprinkle it with just a little bit of powdered sugar just to make it pretty on the plate. We're going to take a chocolate bar, whatever kind of chocolate you like, and just kind of grate down the side of your chocolate bar, just to kind of get a little bit of chocolate shavings on the top. See how that just adds just a little bit of color, a little bit of flavor. I mean, you can't have too much chocolate, and it just looks so pretty. And then we're going to add just a few little strawberries on top, just to make it pretty. Let's see, let me get the right knife here. We're just going to take a strawberry. We're going to cut through, not all the way to the top. Just cut through, remember, and you can just fan it out. And it just looks so pretty on the plate. We'll do another one there. And there's our little chocolate-filled beggar purses. Now, our chicken is done. We've got our chicken over here, and it just sauced up beautifully. And we want to plate that up. We're going to take a couple of our little beautiful little pieces of chicken. We're going to put that on our plate. Just toss it around in a little bit of that sauce. And don't forget our beautiful asparagus. We've got that's just been, keeping warm in that nut, the almond butter that we made. Put a little bit of asparagus on your plate. Then let's check our potatoes here. They just take a minute to melt. Let me grab another. Oh, they look so good. And there's our potatoes. Let's choose one here and put that on our plate. And there we go. There is a beautiful meal with your lemon and soy sauce and honey chicken, your asparagus with your almond and butter mixture, and our wonderful little chocolate beggar purses. Enjoy these recipes, and I'll see you next time.
If you've enjoyed this episode of Everyday Manna and would like a copy of today's recipes, please send a self-addressed stamped envelope to Living Faith Television in care of Everyday Manna, Post Office Box 1867, Abingdon, Virginia 24212, or visit our website at www.livingfaithtv.com. Please be sure to include the program number found at the bottom of the screen in your letter.